Hi, and today I want to talk about where it starts and where it ends because I actually don't know. Today is the 5th of March 2026, and with the things I've seen in the world, I really wish I was never born. I don't want to be here. I represent God on earth. I have read His Bible, I have read all of the books, and I've had dreams and visions from God. What kind of minister am I? That I would want to be dead and I don't want to be here. That I wish I was never born. Well, a minister that speaks the truth and has seen things I can't unsee. There's nothing to live for, nothing to look forward to, absolutely nothing that gives me any desire to be here. But I can spread the message of God. No, I can't really, because I'm being home invaded. My house is being invaded. I've got a whole group of Satanists who have put me on a list, and it's a total assassination of everything about me. Full time. Home invasions, hacking, stalking, taking over phone numbers, SIM cards, phones, emails, just the general everyday operations. But then there's also the torture and the gassing and the manipulating of the water, coming in and tampering with food and water and milk and all those things that you might, be eating or drinking from. And it's a full-time effort. Every time I go out, I've got to tidy up, hide things away, like I'm living in a hostel, and there's no lock these guys can't get into. And there's no Wi-Fi or anything you can do to stop them, because they can clone your phone, they can set up spoofing Wi-Fi's, they can set up spoofing telephone masts. I mean, for example, in my yard, I've got, I would say, 20 fake telephone masts, it feels like. And it's all connected through my electrics. I've talked to you about it, how if you were to have a router and you wanted to extend the Wi-Fi, or even just to have it on a secure network in the house, when you run a cable to one of those extenders and then you plug in another extender, you would think that that's safe, but it isn't. Not if you've got child-eating, blood-drinking psychopaths who are doing home invasions and modifications to your electrics and to your water and to your gas supply. For example, when I put my fridge on, my house becomes a freezer. So actually I only run my fridge now for about an hour or two a day, as much as I can bear. That's about as much as I can bear of being frozen. What are we? How are we put together? Well, we're put together with water, and we're electric. We're made in the image of God, but there's a big secret that they didn't tell you about. And this is where it starts and ends, right? Oh, good. God tells you that when you know the end, you will know the beginning. Because God is the Alpha and the Omega. He's the beginning and the end. And He's the alphabet. And He is the Word and the truth and the light. So the devil is everything opposite to that. And communication through spoken words is something that you think, and then you write it in ink, and then you speak it, and it manifests. But witchcraft is much the same, but it's not real words, it's spelling mistakes, because they're spells. This is all about languages and what language you speak, whether you speak the truth or not. And this is a power play. The devil wants everybody to believe that he has authority over you and your life. But in truth, we are much more powerful and have much more authority than the devil does. But we're missing the manual. We're missing there's a few integral pieces to activate who we are, and that has been robbed from us. So the way I understand it, okay, all right, great. So I'll try and explain it. Basically, there's the ether, okay, and the ether is what connects the earth grid to us, and also the sky, the heavens. And it's like an earth network, if you like, of the power lines and the currents, its frequencies, it's everything to do with that. Okay. You've also got blood in you, and this is the networking wiring, if you like, that connects us to the earth. And the earth has trees, and the trees, we feed from the trees, and the trees feed from us. We breathe in oxygen, and then we breathe out whatever it is we breathe out. I finished school early. All right. But the trees are breathing in what we are breathing out, and then they give us oxygen, right? So, but then they've got roots, and their roots go right down deep into the earth. And that's a bit like a tower. The trees are like the earth towers. You know how we've got 5G telephone masts. So the earth has trees instead. And they connect the network through the air and through the frequencies. And back to the blood type, right? Okay. So we've got the X and the Y chromosome. But there's a Z chromosome as well. You've got the A and B blood type, but there's also a C blood type that you don't know about, because it's the ABC and the XYZ. So what they've done is they've done a reset of some kind some years ago, and they've removed this element. Well, we still have the Z chromosome, but it's an audio chromosome inside our blood. So it's quite hard to explain. I'm not a scientist, and I'm not a biologist, okay? And I finished school early. But this is from the Lord, that I've got this, okay? Because I wouldn't know this otherwise, because I'm not studied in these things, all right? Okay. So the Z chromosome is a bit like the rooting system of the trees that I was just telling you about. Because we've got veins, which are just like the trees' leaves. If you look at their leaves, those are just like veins. And that's their circuitry. The natural circuit of the earth grid that connects us. So through the earth, what happens is the tree's roots embed themselves deep in the ground, and they take the nutrients out of the ground, but they also put nutrients back into the ground, so give and take, and they give us oxygen, and they produce fruit. And like the trees, we are also connected to the earth, but it's essential that everything's operating how it should. And so to activate those sort of the network within us to the rest of the earth, we need to be connected to the ether. And the ether is just like the words. It's like a set of language. It's a protocol, and it's a formula that we are missing. I don't quite know how to put it back together, but this is what I understand. Now, Jesus was able to make the mountains stay still or move, or make the water flat so he could walk on it. This is about molecules and the ether and structure of reality, non-reality, the word, spells, and all of those things, the A, B, C, and the X, Y, Z, because when you know when it starts and when it ends, you know where the beginning and the end is. This is also about mirrors and frequencies and knowing how to sort of absorb the frequencies. We're in a 3D reality which can be bent and can be changed. And like light, you can bend the light. A light can come at you and you can get a mirror and you can point that mirror and it will point that light somewhere else. Now, because you can see the light, you can see what you're doing. But with these frequencies and the ether, you can't see it. So what they've kind of done, because they're angels and they're also angles, is that, and they're like mirrors, right? Because they're not quite in this reality, all right? They've put, if you like, mirrored type of devices to stop us from connecting to the ether, which would connect us to the circuit of the earth and would mean that we have got the same power as Jesus Christ. Now, there was a story about a black guy. I don't know the full story. I think his name was Jonathan. And he was like a superhero. And he believed in God. And he could do amazing things. And people could kill him. And he'd just come back to life again. He was impossible to kill. And he had superpowers. And eventually, the only way they could kill him was to chop him up into lots of pieces and spread him around the world. Now, I reckon that he must have figured out what I'm figuring out, and must have connected himself to the ether. If you notice, this is also about electricity. Electricity is a trickery created by the devil. Before, we had free electricity, free electric or free power. This is about power. And you have more power than the devil. You know why? Because the devil does not have dominion over what is real. We have dominion over what is real. When we start to believe the lies, the spells, the witchcraft, then that reality becomes more pronounced and powerful in our lives. How have they managed to persuade us that our reality is not reality, but their reality is our reality with spells, witchcraft, Hollywood? Hollywood is the wood that they make the witches stick with, and they have done spells with casting and programs. And basically, just as God says, He can't change it because I have written it in my book. Once it is written, you cannot unwrite it, and so it will happen. So Hollywood have done the same with the television and movies and cinema. They've also introduced lots of words into our vocabulary that were not around at the time that the Bible was written. And this is how I've managed to establish the digital, teach no logic technology that they operate with, which is all about lies, making no logic work within the spell work, so that you cannot comprehend the supernatural structures of the ether and the power grid that is connected to us. We are still connected to it. Even though we are not familiar with how to use those powers, if we could tap into our power, we could move mountains. And we could do all the things that Jesus was doing. He said, wait till my brothers and sisters come here, because they will also do things like me. And we are this generation. Welcome to the family of God. This is between two tribes or two breeds of people. You got fake people and real people. This is about what's real and what's not real. That's why God's children are called Israel, because they don't do spells, and they don't do witchcraft, and they don't talk to the dead, because those guys in the dead and the witches and all that, they operate in the realm of not real. Okay? So, and we are in real. Okay? But if we don't know where we start and where we end, then it's quite hard to put it all together, because they've manipulated it with angels, because these are angels. And they've brought in their own type of communication. Okay. Now our type of communication is real, spoken words, written words, manifesting, believing the truth of who God is and who we are, as it is written in his book, which is Emmanuel, as in Emmanuel, Israel, gospel, the bread of life, be read. And this is why God gave us the manna in the desert when we were going round for 40 years. Because the manna, if you noticed, only kept for a few days, 1 day, and then you had to throw the rest away. Because God has got the real manna in the Bible, as in the bread. And that's why we had the manna first. And we're now in the wilderness. Again, first we were in the wilderness with the Exodus after Egypt, where we got the manna. And God came as a cloud by day and a fire by night, and he gave us the manna, which is like bread. And that was to feed us. And he also gave us quail for meat as well. Now, if you're feeding a child can only eat soft, easy solutions, and like soft rice and, porridge and that kind of thing. And then they can start eating solids when they reach a certain age. But until then, they cannot have it. So this is the same. Because we were frightened to see God, we wanted somebody else to talk to God for us, because we were frightened of God. When God came to speak to us at the mountain, we all were frightened. And so he gave us Moses to talk to us. But that kind of didn't do it, you see. Because you can't give one person too much power here. Because we're all connected to God. And so that's the secret. That through love and through all of us being in unity, we will have the same power as God. But if we don't love our neighbor, then we won't have this, because we're not in unity, and we are of the enemy, because we are talking his language. This is hate and death, and so we have to talk in the same language as God, which is love and truth and life. And if you realize that we are at a very integral part where, because we've already had the manna, God has now appeared as a physical being, as Jesus Christ, as the Word, as the living Word. And he gave us the bread as when he died, before he died. He tore the bread and said, "This is the bread that I'm tearing. This is my body. And this is the blood, the wine. And this is my blood." Because it's a second Exodus and it's a second wilderness. Okay. So the bread that God gave us, the manna, was a temporary measure until we got to the promised land. Okay, so this is the same. Oh gosh, it's so beautiful. All right, so we've got the promised land that God has promised us for the ending. But we have to know the beginning, we have to know the ending, and we have to work with what we are structurally put together with, because we are real, we're made in the image of God. So the bread that Jesus gave us is the bee reed, which is the Word of God, the Bible, which is a written form of God, because God is inside the Bible. And he manifests himself as you read the Bible. And that's why he left us the bread and the blood. And the blood is the circuit, like I was saying. And this is the wine also. Now, when we did the sacrifices to God in Leviticus, we always sacrificed a lamb who was spotless. And we also gave the Lord bread, but it was without yeast. And we also gave him herbs with sweet-smelling aroma and wine to represent this, because that was a forerunner before Jesus came here. Now, Jesus has fulfilled that. And so now we need, like, this is all about the prophecies as well, where Joseph interpreted the dreams about the bread maker and the cupbearer. This is also related to now. So in that dream, there was a bread maker, and he had a dream that a bird came and took the bread from the basket on his head. And so Joseph interpreted the dream that he would die in 3 days. And then we had the cupbearer who had a dream about grapes, and grapes being, I think, squeezed into a glass, something like this. And what the interpretation for that dream was that in 3 days he would be the cupbearer for Pharaoh. Okay. And Pharaoh was the most powerful man in the whole world at that time. And then Joseph, if you know, interpreted these dreams. But he also had dreams about the 12 sheaths bending down, or was 11, to him as well. So this also represents the end times, where Joseph is also representing that bread, that he would have power over what's real in the same way. It's hard to explain it. Okay, so basically what we have is the cupbearer is also related to this time now. Because if we look at it as if God is like Pharaoh, right? The bread maker, notice it's a bread maker who made the bread. He was going to die. Okay? And this is because it represents the churches in this reality now. Those ones that are producing the books, the bread, the bee reed, okay, and then the wine is all about the wineskins, because if you notice, when Jesus was here, it's about a wedding, and Jesus created wine from water. Okay. In the Exodus of when we were out in the wilderness with Moses, he struck a rock and water came out. Okay. And that also represents the living water. So we've got water, blood, bread. Okay. We've got light as well. So these are the elements of the ether. It's hard to explain it. And I'm getting a lot of this as I'm talking. So I'm trying to explain it to you as I talk about it. So how can I put it? Like your blood is a circuit, the water that you drink is each integral to the operation of your circuit. The water of life, the water that God has offered us, will mean that our circuit will be eternal, and we'll be eating from the tree of life, which is also the bread of life, because it's about a tree, and it's about a circuit and an ether. Okay, let's put it this way. The symbol for ether is a pyramid on top of a pyramid, which becomes a six-pointed star, which is the same symbol that the children that pretend to be God's children are using as their symbol. Okay? Because when we were taken from the garden, we were taken out of our reality. So it's about reality. And we were put into this reality. Our bodies are a physical, three-dimensional body, and we're in a type of matrix. We were taken out of the heavens and put here, trapped, if you like, because we have to execute the will of God, and God has to execute this will. Because we're made in the image of God, we have to do it as well, you know. Basically, the devil who eats the soil, which is so ill, the closer you are to death, the devil will eat you and you'll be dead. Because we ate from the tree of the knowledge of good and evil, so we had to experience where we are now. And there's a period and a phase of time that has to go through before this is completed. The end of the age, as Jesus said. And all of the things that I've said will manifest themselves regardless of whether you are fully in comprehension of what I'm saying. Because it is written, and we are at the end of this age right now. How many ages are there? Quite a few. Well, how long is an age? An age is 1,000 years. So God created everything in 6 days. And we were created on the 6th day. So Jesus, I believe, appeared in the 6th day. Because we were made on the 6th day. But the 6th day to God is 6,000 years. 7,000 years is the day of rest. So we're approaching that time of rest. That's why Jesus could not come and rule yet, because it wasn't his time yet. If we go from what is written, then he appeared, according to the book of the bee, 5,500 years into time, this reality. But God's reality already has 7,000 years, the day of rest. Okay. So I guess the secret to the questions really are in the book of Enoch, to establish what day was it that these guys ate from the tree. Because then we'll have an understanding of where we are. Because, and what time. Because they would have been in the day of God's day, which is 1,000 years. So it depends on what time. And I think that it's all about time. That's why it's all about the 369. 369 and pi. This is also part of it because it goes in a loop. It goes round on itself. And it creates a circle and a square. And then it does it again. And it repeats itself over and over. And this is taking a non-reality to a reality, manifesting non-3D into 3D. That's what pi is, I think. But also, pi and the language of the Egyptian, if you notice, nobody knows anything about the language of the Egyptians. Everybody's a bit dumb, deaf, dumb, and stupid when it comes to understanding all these different languages and all of those things. So before we had a reset, there was all sorts of things that happened. We had Nimrod, and Nimrod had decided to build a tower like the towers we have to penetrate the heavens, to try and destroy heaven, because there's a war in heaven, and there was darkness brought into the heavens through the devil. So there's a war in heaven and there's a war here. And Nimrod, who worked for the darkness, the devil, created these towers. But you've got to understand that towers were trees, right? So God's towers are trees. The devil's towers are the 5G towers, which is to take away the ether, and it's to take away your chakras and your connection to the earth and to the ether and to the grid of God. The earth is an anagram for the heart, so that's why it's all about love as well. But it's so hard to get it over. Even I'm having trouble trying to understand it and convey it in the way I understand it. But we are elect. That's what you need to know. And we are conductors, and we conduct our lives, and we also are able to conduct other things around us, provided that we are in full control of the ether. Now, the devil doesn't want us to have that because he is enjoying dominion here. But once we have mastered these things, then we will have the dominion and the power, because we are real. And the devil world is the meta world, which is the world of the dead. And he also comes in a cloud, which is the World Wide Web, and the cloud of the death, which is also where AI lives. And this is also where the demons live and the fallen angels, because the abyss has been opened. The abyss must have been opened fairly recently, a couple of 100 years ago, I believe in 1776, on the 4th of July, which is their Independence Day away from God. So, and that's why we've got the Cabbage Patch children, which would have been the clones, and then we would have had the reset where all living real people would have been killed. The ether would have been snatched, hijacked, and then we would have been re-educated to be under the dominion and the rulership of the slave masters, which are the Babylonians. So everything you've been told is a lie. There aren't any new graveyards, are there? So what's happening to people when they die? Because I don't think they're going in graveyards. I think they're going back in the food chain. Now, we get our power through the words of God, and we're living, and because our blood is living, as we are powered by the ether, even though we don't know how we're connected, we are connected to the ether. They have hijacked the control of that and brought in spells and witchcraft and lies, because they want dominion and power through their tower over us. This is why everything's done through aerials, Wi-Fi, Bluetooth, electricity, because electricity, Bluetooth, Wi-Fi, lights, all are their own circuit. And those are invisible wires and circuitry all around the earth. The earth already has a grid of circuitry that you can't see, and the earth looks like a circuit. It looks like a motherboard of some kind. Ships are very interesting as well, that ships are called ships in the water, and then ships are also ships in the sky. So have you noticed in some of the movies they've actually got the water ships flying around in the sky, and then you got the normal ships in as well. Why? Well, because a ship is a vessel that you travel with. Is the earth round or is it flat? Well, it's 180 degrees flat. That I can tell you, because it says so on the roads. And that's why a plane is called a plane, because he's flying on a plane, on a flat area. We have got a dome, but the dome is over the top of us. And this dome is salt water, and the earth is also made of salt water. This is living. If you notice anything with salt, saltiness grows better, goes greener. If you want to get rid of slugs, use salt. But Jesus also said, if you lose your saltiness, you are only good for the rubbish heap, because the salt is what keeps us alive. So they've purposely removed salt from your diets. So you need to have more salt. I believe something about the salt helps the circuitry of the ether. This is what I think. This is why they don't want you to have the salt, so that they can connect their towers to you, put their nano inside you, which you're going to breathe, because they're spraying us like bugs, and they're putting stuff in the water, and then that goes inside us, and they can control it. One tiny speck of nano can be activated by their lights and their circuitry of electricity, and it can grow to the size of an arm in 5 seconds. But if you've got salt in your blood, this circuit can't grow. Why is it so important for the devil and his minions to do this? Because we're about to connect to God's circuit. Simple terms. Because we're elect. Okay. And God is conducting. He has written. So it has to manifest. Whether you believe me or whether you understand it or not, it's about to happen big time. And it's going to be amazing. Whether you believe me or not, it's just going to happen. And it's just going to be amazing. And this is where the sky will literally be rolled up. Because reality, as you know, it is only structured based on what God has written to a certain point. Because the story has an ending and a beginning, which are the same. When you know the end, you'll know the beginning. It's about your blood. This is about the bread, the read, what's real and what's not real. This is why when Jacob had a battle with the Lord, he had slept at this place where he had a rock under his head, and the place was called Peniel. And when he battled with the Lord, he was renamed Jacob to Israel, because the Peniel where he sat had been opened. And so this also represents the dream state. So our dream state is the circuitry of God, connects us to the earth. And this is another reason why they're doing all this stuff to pump us full of weird food so that we're not clean. Okay. But salt is what cleans you. Salt is a preservative, and it also will clean your blood, and it will open up the circuitry and the connections in this reality and another reality. So if you are unwell, something happens and you go to the hospital, the first thing they do is they put a saline into you. Why? Because it's got salt in it. Okay. So if you want, there's a guy who talks about, because some people are really fat, right? And they want to lose weight. There's a guy online and he does a snake diet. And it's fasting and drinking the salt mix of water that he makes. And you have supernatural power when you go on this diet. Yeah. You have more energy than when you're not on it. So try that. I will try and do it as well. I plan on doing a book to help others with, some of these things. You have to know that electricity is disrupting your circuit, the ether, and your chakras. Because they're over-exerting electricity at you, which you can't see. Which is powered by their grid, which they have created, which is the 5G grid. And they're trying to connect each person to their grid as nodes. And they're trying to take you, your soul, and put it outside of your realm, of your reality, of 3D, and trap you outside in the metaverse. So this is why it's important to read the Bible, talk to God, and know who you are, and have lots of salt. I hope this helps you. This is a very, very intense broadcast about reality as you know it and where we are. And if you want to find God FM, you can find us on Podbean, Spotify, Amazon, Samsung, Chrome, YouTube, Apple X, as well as TikTok and Telegram. And you can email me, admin@godfm.org.uk, and you can WhatsApp me, +44 777 35 77788. You need to know that everything in your reality is not important. What's important is maintaining your reality in God, to separate yourself from the filthiness that makes it impossible to be in union with God. So this is where you've got to follow the commands of God to be clean, and you've got to wash yourself regularly of uncleanness. And this means repenting of your sins and turning from your wicked ways, because if you don't, you'll be stuck in the metaverse, which is what they've put in place to separate us from the ether and from the reality of the grid that connects us to the earth, and from activating our Z chromosome and the C blood type, which is about to be activated, whether you know it or not, whether you believe me or not. It's about to be activated, but it can only be activated in a clean people with eyes who can see and ears to hear, and people who have read the Bible. So, and we have to be in unity. This is not a competition. This is about loving one another, being there for one another. This is a very hard journey. This is like childbirth. It's like a reality on top of another reality. This is a wheel within a wheel, a time within a time. And we are in a merger, but also separation. And if one of the timelines get crossed with one of God's, then you'll be stuck. So you need to be in the reality of God alone, and just seek God. I don't want to be here. I already told you this. I'm not enjoying it. I'm not enjoying it at all. But I'm here for whatever reason, and I can only assume that the attack commander is because there's something that's about to happen with me. So anyway, we're going to get there. We are going to get there. We are going to do this. We are going to be okay. Think of it this way, that the devil comes after us like a flood. And so it is like a flood through the water. And the water is like the blood of the earth. And he's tainted the water because it's like a bitter water. But that's also in the Bible. Okay. All right. I hope you have an amazing day. It's Ayesha from God FM. And I pray that the Lord is with you. If in doubt, just get some Bible scripture and start reading it aloud to bring the presence of God into you. Even if you're not really sure you believe in God, you can get the protection of God while you're finding out about Him. Okay? Because without God, we're not going to make it. All right? So we need God. Even if you're not having a nice time, you need to surrender to God, because through God, we have got victory already through Christ. because he is the bread of life, be read, and he's also the blood, representing the cupbearer and the bread maker for now. With the new wineskins, and where you will be able to turn water into wine, where the living water is literally going to flow from the real children of God. And it's going to be very, very amazing. All right. Have a good day. It's Ayesha from God FM. Take care.